And good evening, everyone. This is the Rooftop Sports, and this is Trident Podcast, my best partner in crime of covering the Mariners and the Seahawks. And welcome. We are going to talk about the Mariners off season, and we'll talk about what the Mariners should do, what kind of holes to fill. Should they have extended that qualifying offer to Teoscar Hernandez? Because you've been seeing the jokes on Twitter of like, oh, yeah, typical Mariners ownership being their cheap ways. And we'll talk very briefly about the Texas Rangers. Now, before we get started, hit subscribe, hit the like button for both of us. And I mean both of us to help grow our channels, as we would love to make this the promised land of our careers. And also, I just want to extend a very much thank you to all the viewers, including you, the viewers, and Trident Podcast for helping me get to that 1,000 subscriber. Thanks to that, we are now both YouTube partners, and we are going to work together to grow each other for the future. So thank you very much once again. Now let's get into the video before I bore all you guys to death talking about myself. So first, the Texas Rangers had just won the World Series just 7 days ago. It seemed 6 days ago. And as much as us Mariner fans don't like it, you know what? We got to hand it to them, because in one of my YouTube videos, it was titled that the Texas Rangers did what the Mariners should have done. Not only did they build a well-established farm system, actually, they've been having farm system development for generations, but also they spent the money on the likes of Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. And most of all, they hired a great, competent manager of Bruce Bochy, who has now taken a team to the World Series 3 different times. San Diego Padres 98, Giants, where he won the World Series in all 3 of them in 2010, 12, and 14, and now the Texas Rangers. So as much as I hate to say it, you did good, Texas. That's all I'm going to say. You did good, and I wish the Mariners would do the same exact thing. Any quick thoughts on the Texas Rangers winning the World Series, Mr. Trident?
Yeah, I think the Rangers are a good example. I said this in a video that I did in the World Series. Do a good job. They did all 3 things well. I think a lot of people just want to focus on the spending, and they did a good job spending, but they, like you just mentioned, great farm system. They made some key trades. The Rangers are a great example to me of that organizational balance. They really did. They hit every avenue. You can't just have one of them. Like, you can be a really good team at drafting, but that's probably not going to win you a World Series. You can spend a lot of money in free agency, but if you can't draft and trade, probably win you a World Series. The Rangers do all 3, and I agree. I think Bruce Bochy was a huge part of that. I think one of the best managers that has, maybe never done it, to be honest. So yeah, they deserve congratulations for that. And hopefully one day we will be there one day.
Hopefully we'll say the same exact things. And even if they do win a World Series, I'll say I will still not thank Mr. John Stanton. It will be because we got lucky and got around his cheapness. And before we get into the next topic, because that's all we really have to say, better Texas than Houston. Well, here's my thing.
Flick.
The Rangers won the World Series before the Mariners, and now that just leaves the Mariners as the only team in the American League West to not win a World Series. Had it been Houston, at least Texas wouldn't have had one. So I can deal with a multiple World Series out of Houston because I'm used to it now, and I have a bunch of Houston friends. But yeah, better that than Houston. But hey, because Houston, I'm willing to have the Rangers humiliate us and put us in a much deeper hole of humiliation. What else do you say? Problem with Texas winning is it shines a bright light of how bad. Yes, I told you that. I told everyone this. A winning team, that is. What's new? Nothing's new. But now we are going into the breaking news that just seemed to have happened today. And this was expected, but the Seattle Mariners had just decided that they will not be extending their qualifying offer for Teoscar Hernandez, and it was going to be valued at around the $20 million, and it was expected. Like we all expected it from day one trade that it was going to be a 1-year rental, and that considering that he has great power, but he does strike out way too much. It was really no surprise, and I just didn't. And I think that whole strikeout count really does play a factor on why they would not extend that qualifying offer. And even if he was even better than what we saw, I think they still would have done the same thing anyway. What was your thoughts on Teoscar not being offered the qualifying offer?
Yeah, definitely not surprised by it. You said, we kind of figured that was going to happen. The only downside is that, like, you could make the case they should have done it. Teo declines it, hits free agency. You get the draft pick compensation. Now, draft pick compensation in baseball isn't the same as football, where you're getting that pick next year and you're getting a guy right into the show. So I'm not going to dwell on it too much. I mean, you could make a case they should have at least offered it. But the downside is, I'll be honest, I don't really want Teoscar back on the team. You mentioned a few things. Also, just the power's legit. I'm not sure if it plays well in this ballpark. So I think at the end of the day, I do think there's a chance he may have accepted. People are saying there's no way. I don't think it's crazy that he may have been like, listen, I'll take the 1-year deal. It's $20 million. That's more than I'm going to get in the open market per year. I gained some of my value back with a better season. I'm not sure if that would have happened in Seattle with the ballpark, but I'm okay with it. I'm not going to stand and say, oh, perfect deal, they shouldn't have done it, but I get why they didn't offer it. I'm not going to lose too much sleep over not doing that one. And I didn't really want Teoscar back anyways. So if he would have accepted, it would have been and then, is what it is. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, those are good points. And some of my points on Teoscar Hernandez was this, where there were sometimes I saw him on defense where it was like, why did you bobble that? Why did you make that error? And I remember against that Houston game, he not only let the ball drop, which is one thing. I was like, yeah, he still should have hustled and caught it, but he let it go past him. And that was a part of Houston just completely just annihilating the Mariners. And that was the same game where it was Hector Nardiz and Julio Rodriguez going at it. And then the inning later, that was where Teoscar go, oopsie. And yeah, the strikeout count was very concerning. He couldn't really get it done in the big games. Didn't really seem to be a playoff guy either, because I looked at his numbers in the playoffs and I was not impressed either. But here's my thing. If the Mariners are going to get rid of Teoscar Hernandez, fine. But here's the thing. They better come up with a plan to actually replace him. Find something better, because I will not be content with our outfield being Jared Kelenic, which I do like, Julio Rodriguez, and also having Dominic Canzone and like Cade Marlowe in right field. I'm not really sure about that. I don't think I'd want to go into 2024 with those two. Now, there are upside on both of them. Canzone is still a high-level prospect. Cade Marlowe showed some things that he could do in case of injuries, but I'm not willing to start the season with those two alone. I mean, because Canzone, he's still kind of raw. And I know there's players that they get it right the first time, but not every players are like that. Everyone's different. So I think they should go out and find someone, and we'll talk about that later about that, because if we go into it with no Teoscar Hernandez and no replacement, we would have traded Eric Swanson for absolutely nothing, which would be another source of embarrassment of this management. And I think that's all we can touch on about the Teoscar no qualifying offer. And speak of qualifying offer, the Angels extended theirs for Shohei Ohtani, which is also around $20 million, which honestly, I think we can all agree that the Angels only did that just because they know Shohei's gone. So they might as well get that compensatory pick, which I would imagine would be a pretty decent one. Yeah. Now, before we go into that, it will be either free agent class or positions to fill. Now, you guys in the comments, choose what you guys would like. Now, until then, with the voting, we're going to talk. We'll go through all the comments. So either choose free agent class or positions to fill. So everyone put it in the comments on which one you want first, because we do have 35 minutes left in this show. So let's make it happen. Now the comments. You want Jeff Bezos to buy the Mariners or Bill Gates' rich people in Washington? I would probably choose Bezos, but knowing that he's moving to Miami, I think he wants a little bit less to do with Seattle at this point. And Bill Gates, he's too much into his nuclear project, and he doesn't invest in the sports team, so I don't think he's going to happen. But maybe Jeff Bezos. I mean, I'll take him over John Stanton, because at least Jeff Bezos, when it comes to his product, he's very passionate about his Amazon product. What's next? Ready, Set, Actions commentaries. How are you doing today? It's been a while. And Flick of the Switch blames me for the Mariners on my horrible commercial selections. Well, you know what? I'm actually limiting my commercials because now that I have reached the partner status, I don't want to risk copyright in case if that commercial is sensitive to it. So, Flick of the Switch, I'm doing you a favor, but Modern Exterior Solutions will be at large unless any small business out there can sponsor me. But things could get worse. I could also have like some really annoying videos that I made when I was like in middle school, or high school, or college. So you just open Pandora's box for that. Let's see next. You're just talking about movies. What an underwhelming free agency do you see the Mariners signing in this offseason? Who knows? Jung Hoo Lee to replace Taylor. I heard about that one too. Yeah.
Down with them.
Cody Bellinger, Juan Soto, Jung Ho Lee. In Korean, it's Lee Jung Ho. We'll see. All right. So it sounds like based on these comments, I think they want to talk about the free agent list. So I guess we'll talk about the free agent class of 2024. And we're going to go over first the first 15 free agents. And we'll make a debate on whether the Mariners should go for him or just don't even bother. Now, number one is obviously... Does anyone want to take a guess? Who is the number one free agent? Does anyone want to take a guess? Anyone? Any takers?
Luis Torrens.
I thought it would be Luis Torrens, or it could be Tom Murphy or anyone like
Murphy's
that.
Actually a good one.
Yeah. Shohei Ohtani. He is obviously the highest coveted free agent right now. And even with that torn UCL that required the second elbow surgery, he is still the top free agent. So even if he's not a pitcher, if you need a designated hitter, Shohei Ohtani would be your guy. Now let's talk about it. Shall the Mariners go for Shohei Ohtani in this open free agent market?
They should. Will they? You know what? I actually do think they will be involved in the Ohtani discussion. They were involved last time. I know John Stanton's I hate John Stanton as much as everybody, but I do think they will. Now, how involved? I don't know, because Shohei is a tough one because the problem with Shohei, not the problem with it, but like there's a legitimate chance the Mariners could be all in on Shohei Ohtani and not get him. Like he can kind of pick his destination for lack of a better term. Like he may just want to go to the Dodgers. The Mariners could do everything they want, and he could end up being like, I want to stay in Los Angeles. I like it out here. I do think they will inquire. I think they'll be involved. To what extent, I don't know. I don't know how serious they'll be in pursuing it. I don't know if it's going to be like, hey, we called on him. It's going to be, no, we're pushing for this. You know what I'm saying? Like last year we saw the Giants make legitimate runs for Aaron Judge, a player like that. That was a serious run. Is it going to be something like that? Or is it going to be something where like, oh yeah, they called and then they talked for 10 seconds. So, but yeah, they should be all in. I would do anything to have Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though he's going to be a pretty high price, I will say this, even in an ownership perspective, I think it would be a great return of investment, although that you're going to be paying a lot of money for him. But think about it. Not only does he make you possibly a World Series contender, but let's also not forget about the fact that Mariners have a long history of bringing Japanese talent into Seattle. Ichiro Suzuki, Kazuhiro Sasaki, Kenji Jojima, Hiwasashi Iwakuma, all those kind of guys. And even Kikuchi, they brought in the Japanese crowd. And there are fans out there from Japan that will break the bank just to visit Seattle to watch their Japanese heroes. And Shohei Ohtani is a big hero. Remember, Ichiro was a big hero. There were some sections where you saw that a lot of baseball fans from Japan were there just to see Ichiro. And I would like to see the same thing happen. And I would hope that Ichiro would be involved in this kind of free agency talk. So I would think that Mariners have some kind of a cultural edge on that. And most of all, he would fill the DH void easily that no one has really filled since Edgar Martinez. Any free agents or any DHs you can name since? Jose Vidro. That's it.
Like
Mike Ford.
Encarnacion was good for the first half of 2019. There's been a couple that have had to like okay. Nelson Cruz was good. So I mean they've had a couple, but yeah, it just hasn't been. Yeah, listen, I'm all for it. Like I break the bank for Ohtani, even if he doesn't pitch, even if he never pitches again. Honestly, like he's enough of a good hitter that puts the team over the top, in my opinion. I think if the Mariners the Mariners did nothing else and just added Ohtani, I might make him the favorites, like in the AL West. I think it's very possible that is enough just by itself. I'm not saying I wouldn't want to do some other things, but I mean, it's a plan, like you said. It's not just what he does on the field. There's also, and that's why I think the Mariners might be interested in, because I think John Stanton will look at it from a business standpoint and go, hey, this isn't just someone I'm putting on a baseball field. This is going to help me make money, through other avenues as well. So it's kind of what I'm hoping how they look at it. I wish they would just look at that and say, hey, he's amazing at baseball, go get him. But, I do think it helps you in other avenues. So I could not be more on board. If I wake up tomorrow, they're giving Shohei Ohtani 30 years, $8 billion, cool. I don't care. Like, sign me up for it.
Imagine that YouTube video. I'll be like probably in my jammies or something if I wear jammies and be like, oh my God, Shohei Ohtani's on the team, and then have to throw in a YouTube video and like slap on a thumbnail like it's a last minute hair job kind of thing. So
right. I'll do it from the bathroom. I don't care.
Yeah. So let's get Shohei Ohtani. Let's make it happen to make us more serious contenders.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of people were speculating or assuming that they held off on the free agent market in 2023 just to maybe wait for Shohei Ohtani. But if that's the case, actions speak louder than words. So let's make it happen. Now, we should probably move on to the next player because we don't want to just eat up the entire show with just Shohei Ohtani and just completely destroy my content or our content. Another notable free agent in the top 15, and I think the Mariners should absolutely go for him, Blake Snell, who is not an MVP, the Cy Young candidate for the San Diego Padres. And now he is a free agent. And let's not forget, Blake Snell was also a local here. He went to, I think it was called Shorewood High School. Yeah, this got to be Shorewood. It was Shorewood High School because I have actually a really good friend of mine. You saw Epic Sea Films. They went to high school together. Now, they didn't really know each other, become friends. And there's a pizza place in Shoreline, Washington that has a pizza named after Blake Snell. I was there last night. I didn't try it because I just wanted sausage and pepperoni. I didn't want the Blake Snell at the time, and I didn't want to do content and make it all such a big deal. But Blake Snell would be a great addition because he's a left-handed pitcher. He knows how to get it done in the playoffs, at least until that Rays manager pulled him in Game 6 of the 2020 World Series. And our starting pitcher is kind of thinned out. Like Logan Gilbert, yes. Luis Castillo, yes, but he gives up home runs. There's George Kirby, but his mental competitiveness expires after 7 innings, apparently. But can you really trust Brian Wu and Bryce Miller to like actually take it to the next level? Because when I saw those guys, as great as potential they had, I think they were just too raw and they were just figured out eventually. I mean, Brian Wu was figured out by Texas day one, but I just don't think that they are the long-term answers. And I think they could be used something for tradable assets. So I think that's why the Blake Snell move makes a lot of sense for the Mariners. Now, if I'm warning you, Blake Snell, you may not be able to pitch more than 7 innings because Scott Service has a policy where if you go 7 innings and you're close to 90-ish pitches, you're going to get benched. You're going to get pulled for the bullpen. So I am warning you for that. But I still think the Mariners should definitely go for Blake Snell.
Yeah, Snell. Well, and Snell, I'm pretty sure has expressed interest, would want to pitch for the Mariners. I could be mistaken on that. But I'm, from the area. So I think he's wanted to come back to Seattle. So, and listen, I'm all for it. Like you said, I think the rotation's a little thinner than people think. I like Wu and I like Miller. I'm not ready to just hand them rotation spots, though. If they come out in spring training, have a great spring, maybe Bryce Miller develops secondary pitches, then sure, like I'm not saying they can't be in there, but I'm not ready to just hand the keys over to them, especially both of them. Maybe one, both of them in the rotation. Snell gives you another legitimate ace, someone that probably wants to come here, so you don't have to do too much selling on it. My only thing with that is I don't know if I see the Mariners giving out another big pitching contract. They've got the Castillo deal, the Robbie Ray deal. I don't know if they'll do it with Blake Snell. I don't know if they're going to give up a third contract for a starting pitcher. That would make 3 starting pitchers with contracts. Now, I'm fine with it. I just don't know if it's something necessarily that they will do. But yeah, another one that I'm all for. Like guys like that, like Ohtani, Snell, they're the top of the free agent market. I mean, do it, especially for this Mariners team. I don't think it's a team that's far away. They didn't lose 95 last year. They were a game behind Texas and Houston. So, I mean, I'm laughing at Flick's comment, but sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I'm all for it. Like, yeah, I mean, bring in Blake Snell. I would love it. And anywhere you can get better is good. And I'm with you. I think the rotation depth, I like the rotation. The top 3 are great, but I am a little concerned about the back end of that rotation. And then you won't have Robbie Ray until likely the All-Star break. And truthfully, who knows what you're going to get out of Robbie Ray as well, coming off the injury. We can't just assume he's going to come in there and be, his old self. It could take a few starts, and by the All-Star break, he could be out of it for all you know. So yeah, I'm all for it. I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, same thing with Ohtani, truthfully, but we can dream.
Well, yeah, I mean, the dream would be to get Shohei Ohtani and Blake Snell as your marquee free agent signing. Like, I would lose my what if we got those 2. Now, before we get into new players,
if they get both, I'll make a praising John Stanton video.
I won't even do that. I'll be like, congratulations, John Stanton. You just did your bare minimum job. That's all he's going to get out of me. But Flick of the Switch is telling you that, not that one, is to upgrade your internet. That's what he's telling you. So, yeah. But hey, yeah.
I think it's been better, though. I'm watching on my phone. It's been better.
Okay, yeah. So, Flick of the Switch, maybe upgrade your internet. So, that's Blake Snell. Now, next other free agent. Oh, here's another one. He could be the possible replacement for Teoscar Hernandez. It would be Cody Bellinger, who plays center field and first base. Watch out, Ty France. Now, Cody Bellinger, he was a weird case of what happened to him. In his first few years with the Dodgers, including into the 2020 pandemic season, he was one of the best players in baseball. And then in 21 and 22, he just completely fell off a cliff to the point that his value was so bad that he was relegated all the way to Chicago to get like a 1-year cheap contract. But it worked out for Cody Bellinger where he did play well. And now he is going into free agent as possibly a top 5 free agent. Now, my hesitations on Cody Bellinger is, guess his agent.
Scott Boras.
Scott Boras, and we all know Mariners have a very unique history with Scott Boras, where we lost one of his clients named Alex Rodriguez because of Scott Boras, because he's a very hard-nosed, straight, direct to the point, really tough to negotiate with. Because I remember Lou Piniella once said that, hey, here's our offer. And Scott Boras was like, okay, bye. We don't like your offer. Your offer sucks. And then no negotiation. That was it. It was just he sparked the bidding war. And Scott Boras is known for getting his players more money than they should get. But either way, I do think like if the price is right, I would definitely say go for Cody Bellinger, as long as it's not like a 10-year contract, which I don't see him getting. But if it's like somewhere in like the 3 to 5, which I kind of do expect because I think that 2023 season that he had could be that whole contract year phenomenon where he really just plays balls out and he could go back to just being that 2022 version of himself. So I'm all for it if the price is right.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm a little bit more gun shy than the first 2 guys, just because, like you just said, last year kind of, he was a guy a lot of people consider toast. You know what I mean? Before last year, I remember people talking about him for the Mariners on a 1-year deal. I'm like, nah. Like, I just think he's toast. His swing is so long and loopy that I just don't see him bouncing back, and then he bounces back. So it goes to show you what I know. Um, Another guy, like I said, I'm all for it on a smaller deal. I do have a little bit of concern there, at least as a left-handed hitter. The shorter porch and right field in Seattle should help him. Probably an upgrade over Ty France. I'm not sure how he grades out defensively. Could DH as well. So, all guys that I would definitely have interest in. Well, I mean, Otani and Snell, I can give them whatever. I don't really care. Bellinger for the right deal, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I would think. And hopefully he could help be one of the contributors to a World Series team, hopefully the Seattle Mariners. And now let's take a look at other free agents that I think that really stands out. Josh Hader, I think the Mariners should consider. He is one of the proven closers, including the David Robertson or Craig Kimbrell. Now, I don't really like Craig Kimbrell because he really does choke in the big games, but Mariners need a closer. It's more than clear. Now that the Mariners don't have Paul Sewald anymore, and he became one of the best closers in baseball in the last half of the season, and he already was one of the top relievers, with the exception of 3 blown saves, which some Mariner fans made that into a really big deal. But Andres Munoz, if I remember in August, he blew 3 saves in just 1 month, but Sewald took going in the second half to blow 3 saves. And Munoz has proven that. I just don't think he's a closer. He's more of a setup guy, more of the middle rotation of the bullpen. And Matt Brash, guy has talent. He has a really cool pitching form, but he's kind of a little bit raw, needs to develop another pitch. And he tends to have problems with high leverage. So I think Josh Hader is another one that I would like to see the Mariners go for to really bolster that bullpen. But something tells me they're not going to, because I think Dipoto and Hollander have that kind of ego where they're like, oh yeah, we can just moneyball it. We can just go cheap and we'll just develop them overnight. Like when they got lucky with Paul Sewald and Kendall Graveman, but you can only depend on that for so long. And I think when it comes to trying to compete for a World Series, I think you just got to spend a little bit more money, especially when we're in the time where most of the core players still are in club control. And I do think that with that time that the Mariners have, and by the time those guys would be off the books, they'll still have the money to sign those guys if they would like to. So I would also get Josh Hader if possible.
Yeah, probably the first one we'll disagree on. I don't like giving money to relievers. I think the Mariners have enough guys that, I mean, Paul Sewald's a perfect example of it. He was picked up off the scrap heap from New York. They developed him, or ever developed him. Maybe it wasn't the Mariners, maybe just Paul. And he ended up being really good. I mean, again, like if they sign Josh Hader tomorrow, I'm not going to sit there and go, oh God, how dare they do that? You know what I mean? Like it's clearly a good arm that would make them better. So this isn't, there's honestly, Hader's a tough one for me because there's no way they're going to do it for what you just said. Like they're not going to sign a reliever to big money. They're going to do what they've done in the bullpen, which I'm generally okay with, to be honest, but it's one that I haven't even looked at because I just, Jerry isn't a reliever to big money. You know what I mean? Just for the reasons you said at the end there. So, and I generally agree with that. I'm not big on giving big contracts to relievers. I wouldn't be mad. It's a good baseball player that makes the team better, but I would probably say stay away. And I think they will. I don't think they'll be getting Hader. It'll be interesting to see what he gets still in the market. I'm curious because relievers are always kind of hard to judge on the market because a lot of teams subscribe to that.
It's tough to see how much they're going to get. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to, I guess, end up like the Mets when they got Edwin Diaz, and now he's pretty much disappeared, unfortunately, with that injury from that World Baseball Classic.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think this is something they should actually try to maybe just make it one time. Like, because last year, like, they didn't really get lucky enough. Like Saucedo, okay, sure, he was okay, but not something to like completely go, oh yeah, he's amazing. Or Gabe Spire or Justin Topa. I just think if they were on any other team, they would have been in the middle of the pack for pitching, but they were the top ones. Now maybe Topa is a closer, but even then, I still think they should try Hader. But hey, I'm actually glad that we disagreed on something. It was actually getting a little bit boring. That was like, oh yeah, we should get him. Oh yeah, we should get him. And now it's like, Oh no, not this one.
I mean, and like I don't, and I don't like. I'm not against. I mean, I kind of am. I'm not big on giving relievers big money. I personally think Munoz can be a closer, but I get where you're coming from on it for sure. And definitely, he made some in August and September. I wonder how healthy Munoz was. He never. The numbers were okay. Like if you look at Munoz just on, if you go to look at his stat page, good season. But I think we can all agree like Munoz did not look as dominant in 2023 that he did in 2022. I don't think anybody will disagree with that. I wonder if he was pitching a little hurt. I mean, so I'm curious to see how he bounces back. Again, they sign Hader tomorrow. I'm not going to stand up here and go, wow, they're stupid. Hey, it's a good baseball player, makes the team better. And I'm hungry for free agents. So
Yeah,
yay,
I
they did
think all of
something.
us are because look what Texas did. They made some free agent moves and eventually they made it to, they got to the World
Well,
Series, and those free agent guys were very impactful. Simeon was very
and
impactful.
And Texas did a good job too, because listen, not all of them worked out. DeGrom, kind of a bust, pitches 5 games. So it goes to show that, yeah, you don't have to have all of them work out. You can sign a few guys. I'm not saying they're going to do this, but if you go get Otani and you go get Bellinger, I know, guys, I know they're not going to do all this. And Hader, maybe Hader gets hurt. That stings, but you've done enough to offset it. So, Texas did a good job of that too. Got so many guys that they could afford an injury or two, and it didn't derail their season.
And sometimes it could be about preventing the other teams within the division or the American League to go for those guys.
Yeah,
Now, if it went to a National League team, fine, I don't really
that's a good
care.
point.
But if someone like signed like Hader or Bellinger within our own division, I'd be like, yeah, we're screwed. Just like when I remember when Albert Pujols signed with the Angels, I'm like, yep, we're doomed. Let's go get Prince Fielder. Oh no, we're not going to get him. Which I
Well, it
guess that
didn't doom
aged.
us. Luckily, that contract. Yeah.
Luckily, it did not. Now, I think I'm going to go over just one more player because I don't want to just do like, one by one. Jung Hoo Lee or Lee Jung Ho. Wait, I'm Korean. I didn't even say this right. Jung Hoo Lee or Lee Jung Hoo. Oh my God. I'm really sorry to my fellow Koreans. But yes, he is expected to be a free agent even after his ankle surgery. I'm just reading this verbatim, where his season did end in August, but he was the 2022 KBO MVP who hit 429 for Team Korea in the World Baseball Classic, has a career 340 batting average. I believe that would be a 407 on base percentage and a 491 slugging percentage, if I'm correct. And that was in his 7th season in Korea, and he is 25 years old. If we don't get Bellinger, I think he could be a good budget free agent to sign, especially with those kind of numbers. Yes, you're in the KBO Korea League. It's not like Major League Baseball, but if you're making those kind of numbers, and we've seen Korean players translate well to Major League Baseball, like Shin-Soo Choo. Other players like trying to see the one from San Diego. He's been doing pretty well. So I think that's another free agent that I would like to see the Mariners go for.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Absolutely, I'm all for it. I don't know enough about him to like get into it too much. I always forget about some of the Korean and Japanese players coming over. So too much comments. I like the numbers. They sound great. He's young enough. He's not, on the tail end of his career. So bring it on. I'm all for it. I have no idea what kind of contract. You may be better qualified to break that down than me. Like I said, I just don't know enough about some of those players. I try and dive into it a little bit. By the time I start diving into them, other news pops up. So hard to keep up.
I do think that he would be the cheapest out of like the Bellinger, Otani. So I do think that if those players don't work out, then let's explore that option. Like last year, I was hoping the Mariners would at least go for Yoshida, and I thought he would be like a cheap pickup. Yes, $20 million a year, but the guy was very disciplined to play. He had a pretty decent season, and I actually would have taken him over Teoscar Hernandez because he has more consistency at the plate than Teo. Now, Teo has the long bomb, but he also has a lot of strikeouts. So I think that's something that to consider for the free agency. But I
I
think
think
that
they
is
need to
it.
look
Yeah.
at. Yeah, I was just going to add. I think we need to look at. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, I think we really need to have, well, not that me and you are making the decisions for this team,
We
but
should, though.
I think that'd be great. I'd love it. But they need to look at some more contact guys in the offseason. I don't have a problem with swing and miss home run guys. They're valuable. They can work. You can play them in a lineup. But the lineup 1 through 9 was just too much of it. And we saw it hurt them. Some of those extra inning games, loaded nobody out. They needed a guy up there that can put the ball in play, even if it's a freaking double play ball. Like, it would have gotten a run in some of those situations. And you can say, oh, Jay, it's 1 or 2 games. Well, guess what? They finished 1 or 2 games out of the playoffs. That might have been enough to push them over. So they're the guys I like in free agency. Take away Ohtani, Snell, the pipe dreams. Someone like Lourdes Gurriel Jr. for Arizona. Is he the greatest bat in free agency? No, but he puts the ball in play. It's a decent bat. He's good. And he's someone that makes little contact. That's why I like Justin Turner. I did a video on him for DH. He puts the ball in play, doesn't strike out a ton. You got some veteran leadership, guys that have been in the playoffs before. I'd love the big names, but if we're not talking big names, I want some guys that put the ball in play a little bit. I'm not against the strikeout home run guys. They can play, but you can't have a whole lineup of that because it's too streaky. And we saw it from the Mariners. There were games where this offense in July, August, and maybe a little bit in September, I'm not sure, where you didn't know how they even made outs. The offense was on fire. They couldn't make outs. But then they go through stretches where they're just striking out a ton. And home run hitters tend to be streaky. It's part of the nature of it. So a few more contact guys, I think, would be nice in this lineup. And I think you agree with that.
It would be very ideal because we didn't really have much contact guys. Like, the only ones that were like contact guys were like Tom Murphy, JP Crawford, Dylan Moore when he was not terrible. At least they put the ball in play, got on base. But we have Cal Raleigh who strikes out. Suarez strikes out, and he didn't even make it up as well as he did in 2022. Yeah. And even Julio.
And even JP, I love, yeah. And even JP, like, I love JP. JP is a perfect example of a guy that, I even think JP's strikeout rate was above. Dylan Moore actually strikes out a lot for his contact numbers. So even the speedsters they have and the gritty play strikeout. Colton Wong struck out. Now, Colton Wong was just terrible. But, even JP, and I love JP. This is not bashing on JP, but I think even JP, I could be wrong, but I even think his strikeout rate was a little above average. And that's fine, but you got to offset it with a couple guys that can put the ball in play a little bit. Like, I'm all for the home runs. I'm all for it. Love them. Love the long ball. And I think contact plays better in the playoffs too. Because you're facing better pitchers in the postseason. The long ball works. Like, we saw the Mariners tee off on Jordan Lyles a bunch this year. Great. That's awesome. I love it. Beat up the bad pitchers. But you ain't facing Jordan Lyles in the postseason. You're facing, the top line starters. You're facing the Verlanders, the Framber Valdezes, the
Jacob deGrom, if he was healthy,
Garrett Cole. Those are the guys you're facing. Yeah, exactly. So I like a couple guys that can put the ball in play.
Which I don't really see much of them. A lot of them seem to be like more big-time home runs, but very high strikeout guys. And yeah, that would make me concerned because we saw the live games, like, and some of the reasons why I do those live games, because I actually want to see what's actually going on. Like, I want to be engaged with the game. So I know exactly what I'm talking about. Some things we saw. The way Julio was swinging, he was trying to just completely murder that ball. But I was like, no, Julio, you just have to get the guy from second to third or just put it in gaps so you can just go home. Now, if he was the guy in first base with 2 outs, then yeah, sure, beat the crap out of it. But if it's a guy on third base, you can even bunt and we'll get away with it. But we don't even do that. I mean, they don't do that.
And that's because they just have so many hitters. When people would tell me in the comments, like, oh, the strikeouts, I'm like, yeah, you've got Teoscar Hernandez, Eugenio Suarez, Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez. That's going to be a lot of strikeouts between those guys. And I'm fine with it. If you can offset some contact guys, I can live with the swing and miss out of a few of these guys. Like, it's going to happen. But if we can get someone like the 2 names I'm really focused on in free agency are Gurriel and Justin Turner. Now, I'd love Ohtani. The odds are probably slim. I don't think it's 0, but I think it's below 20. So if you can maybe get Turner at DH, Gurriel and right, you get a little better contact guys. Now, they're a little bit older, so you never know. Turner's going to be 39, so his bat could just fall off. That's concerning. But so, there's some question marks. I'm not saying those guys are locks, but I think they're going to be more in the price range for what the Mariners are willing to do. And
very small price range.
Yeah. And they fill needs. It gives you a full-time DH, and it gives you a right field. I know, Flick, you're saying no old guys, but I think Turner on a
deal, a 1 year deal would actually do
strike out a ton, get some veteran. Yeah, maybe a second-year option of some kind. And it's a good veteran that's been to a World Series and can maybe help in the clubhouse a little bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Something to at least consider, because when I saw your video, I was like, that's a really good point. But a free agent that I would love the Mariners to go out of their way to avoid, no matter if he's cheap, even if he's free, is Tim Anderson. Like, when I looked up his numbers, because before I looked at his numbers, when I saw that the White Sox were just not going to extend him or anything, some fans were like, yeah, let's just go get Tim Anderson. Yeah, but he plays shortstop, so that would be little problems for JP. He's never played second base or any other position, so I don't think that would work. But to be fair, he would fit with the way the Mariners play. He strikes out a lot. I looked at those strikeout numbers. They were cringe to look at. They were like 150 plus, and I'm thinking, no, thank you. Let's not do that. And let's not get a guy that likes to fight people, because he did get in that fight with Jose Ramirez. So I'm good. So let's not get him.
Yeah,
but I think that is all I think that's all we've covered for free agency. Do we have any small name ones that we should get?
I'll just add in on Tim Anderson real quick. Couldn't agree more, 100%. Not only does he strike out a lot, he does. At least the other guys on the team currently do some things well. They hit for power. He doesn't even do that. He had like 2 home runs. If we were in 2019, 2020, 2021, maybe I'd be willing to take a flyer, just see if you can get something out of him. But this team needs to try to win it. And I just don't see Tim Anderson. You giving Tim Anderson 300 at bats. In 2019, sure, maybe he shows something and it's worth the risk. I don't think this team should be taking the risk. Now, the only way I'd be fine with it is if they go get some of those big names and then on like a minor league deal, they bring them in, then fine, whatever. But if that's one of their moves, then no, please no. And I don't think he's a good clubhouse guy either, like you said.
No, we need, he wouldn't fit with that good vibes only culture, which the Mariners tend to be passionate about.
All right, guys, good vibes only. Don't forget it.
Stop it.
I couldn't help myself with that, but yeah, that's why I think
Tim Anderson. Fights only. Don't forget it, Tim Anderson.
Fist fights only. Yeah, that's what he would say. That's exactly what he did. But now that we have pretty much covered the free agents, and maybe we'll have a much more in-depth show of like which the cheap free agents they should go for, but who knows? Now we're going to go to positions to fill. And I think we did this last show, but maybe things have changed. But before we get into that, I really hope the Mariners do extend Tom Murphy, which I hope they do, because he was one of the more consistent players. Yes, he wasn't great as a catcher, but hey, it's better than what we had, like Luis Torrens as a catcher, when he thought the ball being thrown at home was a force out when he was supposed to tag the guys. But yeah, let's go get.
I remember that.
Let's get Tom Murphy back, because he was one of the more consistent hitters on that team. And maybe this is a hot take, but I think had he been healthy, I think the Mariners win 1 or 2 of those games. I really think he would have, because he was the more consistent hitters on that team. So let's go get him. And now let's talk about positions to fill. Now, here's mine. Right field, we got to fill that, obviously, because Teoscar Hernandez is gone. And I was even saying, we should get a replacement, because I knew we weren't going to get him anyway. Maybe second base, obviously, unless Rojas can play at a full-time level. And then you only have Jose Caballero. No, I think we should try to get someone that can platoon better than Jose Caballero. I mean, I do like Rojas a little bit, not too much, but I don't think he's going to be enough to to take it to the next level as a second baseman. So I do think they should get another right-handed second baseman if there is someone out there for either a trade or via the free agency. So look at that. First base, at least get some kind of a first baseman to give Ty France like, hey, you kind of suck. We're going to bring someone in so you can have a little competition. And if you win it out, he'll play DH or something like that. And then third base, I'm kind of concerned about because what if Eugenio Suarez does take another step down, which could be possible. Now we have Tyler Locklear as a third baseman, but third base might be something to just take a look at and see what the options are. And now for pitching, we need starting pitching because Robbie Ray's injured. You can't really depend on Bryce Miller and Brian Wu to be your back end guys. So definitely look at those, which is why Blake Snell. And a closer. Absolutely need a closer because I don't know if Topa, Munoz, or Brash are going to be the guys, but I think you gotta find a way to fill that void for closer, unless you get lucky in that free agent by signing another Paul Sewald somehow or Kendall Graveman. But that's just too much to bank on, and I think this is the season where they got to spend just a little bit more money on the closers. And I think that is it for the position voids, which is a lot, but I will say the top ones is right field, second base, starter, and closer. Now, if I want to say top three, let's do right field, starter, and closer. Now, how about for you, Trident? Which ones are you most concerned about for the holes?
I'm going to say right field's obvious. I'm going to put DH in there. And then I will say first base and starting pitcher to me are kind of even. I agree with the bullpen. I think they could add some guys, and I think they will. They're not going to go get an established reliever. I mean, they might get like some guy off the scrap heap, but so it's hard for me to like put that in there just because I know they're not going to really do it. I'm with you on third base. I think they'll roll with Gino. I just don't know who's out. I don't think there's anybody out there that's going to be better unless they can work out some crazy trade, and go get Jose Ramirez, something which I don't think Cleveland would do. I think you're kind of stuck with Gino I shouldn't say stuck. Gino wasn't awful last year. It just was a step back and was down a little bit. So I think you can live with Gino at third base if you can make those other upgrades. Second base is a tough one for me. I'm with you. I'm curious about Ryan Bliss. He's one of the few young guys I think could earn a job out of spring training. I think Rojas is good enough to be kind of your secondary platoon guy at second base. I think he can do that. And Rojas can cover different positions too, which is nice. I'd love to see an upgrade at first base. I know Ty France is going to drive line saucy, which is awesome. I hope he bounces back. But like you said, be nice to just have somebody there to maybe push him a little bit. I mean, if you go get Cody Bellinger, then, that could push him too, even Justin Turner to an extent. But I'll say right field DH, first starting pitcher.
Yeah, that sounds about on par. And yeah, I totally forgot about Ryan Bliss, who was one of the high rising prospects, actually arguably one of the best prospects, probably a top 3, top 5 prospect ending the season, other than Lazaro Montez, other than Cole Young, Harry Ford, Tyler Locklear. But Ryan Bliss was trending up there. And yeah, if he really does well in spring training, yes, definitely give him the job. But my concern is he could be raw talent, like which the Mariners still have. Like a lot of their players right now, they are kind of like raw talent. Like the only player that I would really trust that I would not be worried about raw talent would be Cole Young. Yes, he's been striking out a bit, but he does make it up with walks, so he does keep it at least on par. Great defensive player, great speed. He's like the only player I can trust to come out of spring training. Everyone else would be like, let's do like a mid-season kind of call up. But hopefully Ryan Bliss, which is why maybe they won't really go for anyone in free agency for second base. That's probably the lowest of their priorities because maybe they think that he could be the next guy, but we don't know yet. We'll have to see what happens in spring training. But as long as they get the other guys and if Ryan Bliss works out, then a lot of things can work out. So that is pretty much our position of needs. where we're pretty much on the same par, maybe a little bit less on the second base. I just not sure about Ryan Bliss quite yet. He has a talent,
for sure.
but we'll see. We'll see going into March, but most importantly, we'll see what goes on, because I believe that Jerry DePoto is going to have some interviews with the media on this coming week, but even then, I don't really care about it that much, because it's like, well, what else is he supposed to say? Because I'm the whole believer in actions speak louder than words. The only thing he really just shouldn't have said was, we are doing the fans a favor. That's the one thing he really shouldn't have said. Everything else, I didn't really care about. Okay, he probably shouldn't have said the 54%, because it could be misinterpreted. Like, I understand where he was coming from, but it was still kind of inappropriate. Yeah, 54%. You're
just
a good
bad
team.
timing.
Yeah. And plus, he also said, well, there'll be seasons where we might win 60% or 50%. Well, if you won 50%, you're not making the playoffs. So hopefully Jerry DePoto at least does what he really should do. I don't like him that much. I liked him for how he did the farm system, which he really wanted to do, but his free agent signings and his trades have been just iffy at best, especially the July trade deadline he does, other than getting Castillo. Not so good, especially when you traded away Kendall Graven and Paul Sewald. And what happened after you gave away two of them? You missed the playoffs. So
they did go 21-5 after trading Sewald in their defense. So technically their record was better without Paul than it was. That's not Paul's fault, but I still am fine with that trade. The one was bad, but I'm still okay with the Sewald trade. It would have been nice if they would have done that and then maybe added a couple other players to offset it a little bit. I will say
they
that.
didn't even do that.
No,
I mean, yeah,
that's
maybe
the frustrating part.
I mean, maybe if we had Paul Sewald, sure, you probably would have maybe won 18 games, but you could have made up maybe another 6 wins in September, because there were some key games where it's like, man, we could have really used Paul Sewald in those games. But that ship has sailed, so hopefully the Mariners don't make the same mistakes with their 2023 free agent disaster, where their best signing was Justin Topa. But hopefully 2024, they'll take that to the next level. And hopefully with the Texas Rangers winning a World Series, hopefully that gets the Mariners to be like, hey, we want to compete too. Because, not to throw any shade on Houston, but maybe Houston may not be as big threat. I know I'm going to jinx it probably, but at this point, I'm more scared of Texas than Houston. And don't forget, Houston just got rid of Dusty Baker. So maybe that managerial change could really change some things. And Altuve's not going to get any younger. Verlander's not going to be any younger. So some of those core players on Houston may not get younger, with the exception of Yordan Alvarez, who still has long ways to go. So it's going to be quite the free agency season, and hopefully the Mariners do get busy on that. But it looks like we are running out of time. We might be actually have gone a little bit of overtime. Now, before we go, let's take a look at some notable comments, because we got guys like Flick the Switch that really likes to say jokes and stuff, which he really does. I mean, he's right about Munoz. Slider is not consistent enough. Ty France going to batting school. Great reason to not spend. Yeah, whatever. Tired of signing projects. We need to sign proven. Yeah, absolutely. You can cover the Mariners and Seahawks. Why not the Kraken? Well, NHL would just be a whole nother thing to follow. And already doing Seahawks and maybe some NBA and already the Mariners, the most I would do is just vlogging.
And for me, sad news, I'm not a Kraken fan. I'm a Coyotes fan, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately. Actually been better this year, but I'm actually not a Kraken fan. Love that Seattle's got a hockey team, but not a Kraken fan, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, if we cared enough, we could have done like a live stream between the Kraken and the Coyotes, so maybe that would have been kind of fun to do.
I think they play tomorrow, actually.
But I got other things I would rather do, and I haven't upgraded my Root Sports or my Xfinity, so I'm not going to really do that either. I'm going to wait until baseball season anyway. But all the other comments I'm seeing is like, Randy, was he the guy that had the controversy?
No, that was Wander Franco.
Oh, Wander
Franco.
That's
Wander Franco. Yeah, I get them confused. I shouldn't, but
yeah. We got Hannah saying some stuff. I think these are all the decent.
I actually like. Yeah. I actually wouldn't mind Robbie Grossman as a fourth outfielder. That shouldn't be like their primary target, but Robbie Grossman is like a backup outfielder. I think would be a nice little move. He always seems to have some big hits.
Sometimes, yeah. Let's hope Castillo had a bounce back year. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think Castillo kind of had a down year compared to his 2022 season, so he's not wrong on that. But anyways, that's going to do it for the show. Once again, thank you very much for being part of this show. And dare I say it again, thank you very much for being part of my journey to 1,000. Really appreciate that. Hopefully we can build this channel together and build something more than just a channel. Build a community for the fans, and hopefully for myself, build a community of small businesses to give me better commercials, because Flick the Switch is like, I hate your commercials. Your commercials are garbage. Stop playing Modern Exterior. I'm not going to go for it. I'm going to unsubscribe. Something like that. And Trident, do you have any last thoughts on everything we've said?
No, there's a couple comments back here. I wanted to, I had a question here from Kevin. He asked, when does free agency start? I think it starts now. I think you can start. I think today was the day for free agency to begin. So I'm pretty sure that yeah, I think you can start signing guys. So we could wake up tomorrow morning, like me and Rooftop said, be at work, be in the bathroom, and Shohei Ohtani's a Mariner. It could be that simple.
Let's make it happen. Let's at least get him, and at least all the other ones. And yes, Flick of the Switch, I know you're giving me a hard time, but hey, I can do it too. Now, before we go, everyone check out my new video. It's on Felix Hernandez, the most tragic Mariner of all time. Of course, go to my channel, Felix Hernandez. Just look at him as most tragic hero. Has a thumbnail picture. You know what? I'll show you the thumbnail to see what it is. Most tragic hero. And I did upgrade. I mean, I did make the video back in August, and I remember I was saying, oh man, I have bad luck. Why is nobody watching it? And then when I really looked into it, and ever since I got the magic number, I'm thinking, I looked at all my thumbnails. I'm like, wow, much of my thumbnails garbage. So that's why I refurbished everything. And some of you may have saw that I made a really cool intro to it. So other things you'll see from my channel is you'll see my nostalgic videos, and I have a lot of ideas going forward. So go ahead and stay tuned. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Thank you, Jay Trident, for being in the show with me. And
always,
hopefully the next show we do is that Seahawks preview show. And hopefully the next show we do together is we got at least some kind of a free agent. But everyone else, thank you very much. And everyone have a good night, and go Mariners.